Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Elaine. She has been a master gardener since 2012. Her special interest is sustainable landscaping using native plants, and often these beautiful pictures you see are ones that she has taken. She's a key member of our social media group, and she also is a coordinator for one of our demonstration gardens. Elaine, as always, we're delighted to have you.
Thank you very much, Colleen. Welcome, everyone, to another presentation in our Sustainable Landscaping series. Today, I'll begin by answering some basic questions about ground covers. We'll briefly discuss problems with some invasive species and the reasons why I would recommend instead using native species of ground covers. For the bulk of the presentation, I'll be introducing a wide variety of plants, 21 for sun, 20 for shade, and 4 plants that can grow in a range of sun exposures. I'll take questions at a midway point and then at the end, and I'll also be briefly introducing some helpful resources. We think of ground covers as plants with a creeping, spreading habit. They're used to cover sections of the ground, and they generally require minimal maintenance. But I would like to introduce the idea that you might want to consider some somewhat taller species of plants to help expand the palette of plants you can choose from. We think of ground covers, first of all, as being used where turf doesn't grow well, on slopes or other areas that are difficult to mow. It can be used as edging in borders and along paths, under shrubs and trees, even between pavers, and a range of sun exposures, hell strips, those hot, dry curbsides, or on the other extreme, in rain gardens. Ground covers serve a number of functions. They can be the ground layer in a multi-layered garden. They can reduce maintenance in our gardens as a green mulch. Many people use them as a lawn alternative, taking away all these extra tasks that are associated with grass. Ground covers cool the ground and help retain moisture. They reduce soil compaction and erosion and filter and slow rainwater, a particular concern these days with our heavier rainstorms. And additionally, ground covers can add beauty and interest. Unfortunately, there is a group of ground covers that continue to be popular and available, yet they are invasive. These are some that are designated as invasive in our Northern Virginia area, but they expand well beyond that. If you want to learn the particular problems associated with them, you can follow the links on the handout that I've provided. Plants are designated as invasive when they meet the qualifications of this presidential executive order from 1999. They are non-native species that are introduced into an environment. They can escape from cultivation in our gardens into natural areas, and there they can cause harm to the environment. And they do that in a number of ways. They spread by prolific seeds and rampant vegetative growth. They can produce dense monocultures, thereby suppressing the native herbaceous plants. Some of them may even climb and smother and kill our trees. They can exude chemicals having an allelopathic effect on the growth of other plants. Even small fragments can root to form new plants, and some of them harbor rats, mosquitoes, mice, and ticks that spread disease. I would recommend instead that you consider using some of the native ground covers I'm going to be introducing. These are suited to our local soil and climate. They may be aggressive, but they are not invasive. They're not going to affect the success of other native plants in our natural areas. These native plants have evolved with local fauna. They can provide nectar and pollen for our pollinators. Some serve as what we term host plants for Lepidoptera. They're going to offer nourishment for the caterpillar stage of butterflies and moths. They can provide fruit and seeds for wildlife, and some of them offer cover for a variety of animals. Moving right along, we'll be looking first at low-growing perennials for sun. And I'm going to be introducing all of these plants in each subsection in bloom sequence. You'll notice for each of them that there will be this green text box. And if you follow the links that I provided on the handout, you will be taken to what we refer to as the tried and true fact sheets that we prepared on each of these plants. As we're going through, I may just hit the high points for some of these, but all of this information, in addition to many details on the care of these plants, can be found on these fact sheets. So let's begin with moss phlox, Phlox subulata. This plant is very popular in the horticulture trade, and many people don't even realize that it is a native plant. This really meets the initial definition of ground cover in that it's a very low, dense, mat-forming perennial, only 4 to 6 inches high, but it spreads about 1 to 2 feet wide, grows in sun, and is very tolerant of those drought conditions. Moss phlox has evergreen needle-like leaves that really carpet and help stabilize soil. You'll sense these fragrant tubular flowers from March to May, and they're available in many colors, providing important early season nectar. Moss phlox is attractive when draped over a wall. It's also useful for edging, for rock and water-wise gardens, and erosion control. And a great replacement for invasive periwinkle. Wild pink, Silene caroliniana, is somewhat more mounded as well as mat forming, a little taller at 6 to 12 inches, and it will also spread eventually by stolons, even a little wider than 6 to 12 inches. It also likes sun to part sun and does well in those same drought and shallow rocky soil conditions. Wild pink begins its growth with evergreen basal leaves, and you'll see abundant tubular flowers from April to May. This is another important early nectar source for a variety of our pollinators, and another great replacement for invasive periwinkle. In my garden, I've used it as an edging in beds. You could also add it to rock gardens. It will spread by ground level stems. They're referred to as stolons, and it will maintain its form through the winter. Planted leaf pussy toes, Antonaria plantaginefolia, it's another mat-forming plant, also semi-evergreen. It's only about 2 inches high, although it will reach 10 inches when it's in bloom, but it spreads significantly over about 1 to 2 feet. This one particularly requires lean, dry soil and full sun. It begins growth with these woolly grayish leaves, and this foliage will provide nourishment for the American painted lady butterfly. Male and female flowers will appear on 10-inch flower stalks, and they're absolutely charming. They bloom from April to May, attracting small bees and flies, and really looking a great deal like kitten's paws. I find that this particular species spreads to form a weedless mat, and it's excellent for dry, shallow, rocky soils. Here it is. I've used it as an edging in my garden, and this photo was taken several years ago, so it's really expanded even beyond this, replacing some of the other non-native ground covers that appear in that photo. This is said to tolerate light foot traffic. Julie on chat has mentioned to me that she likes using another species of pussy toes, Antonaria neglecta. And either one of those would be a great substitute for invasive creeping jenny. Another low-growing ground cover is blue-eyed grass, Sisyrinchium angustifolium. This plant has dense, tufted, expanding clumps. They're going to be a little bit taller, 10 to 12 inches high, and can spread up to about a foot across. These grow in sun to part shade, and they, unlike the others we've been mentioning, are going to require consistently moist, well-drained soil. It's called blue-eyed grass, but it's actually a member of the iris family with the typical narrow sword-shaped leaves. It has these charming blue flowers from April to May that draw native bees and flower flies and makes a great edging for borders and pathways. You may be surprised to learn that there is a cactus that's native to the East Coast, Eastern prickly pear, Opuntia humifusa. This is a clumping, low-growing cactus, about 6 to 12 inches high, and it can spread as much as 3 feet across. This will be another plant for full sun and well-drained soil, and it's intolerant of shade. This is actually fairly easy to grow. It can even root from pads that are stuck in the ground. Eastern prickly pear has bright flowers from June to July. Each one of them will only bloom for a single day, but they will attract butterflies and bees. Birds and humans can enjoy the edible pads referred to as nopales and the fruit, tunas, in the fall. And Julie is going to put a link in the chat that will give you information about the preparations of those plant parts if you would like to consume them. When you plant Eastern prickly pear, you definitely want to beware of thorns and the barbed bristles that are referred to as glochids. Prickly pear is great for use in water-wise gardens and hell strips, and also very attractive in rock gardens and on walls, even spilling over very attractively. Many of you may be familiar with the light and airy heath aster, Symphyotrichum ericoides. This is snow flurry, a prostrate form of this 3-foot species. It's very dense and branching with somewhat woody stems. It's only about 4 to 6 inches high, but it will spread significantly wider, about 2 to 4 feet across. This likes sun and dry soil and is tolerant of drought and black walnut. It has stiff and linear basal leaves that will emerge in March, and then the leaves on the stems are needle-like, and they have somewhat the look of heather or ground-cover juniper. In September to October, you'll see very dense sprays of daisy-like white flowers. They attract a wide variety of pollinators. Snow flurry will create a weed-free mat, excellent for border fronts and edging. Mount Cuba recommends its use in rock gardens and water-wise landscapes. And I've used it myself as the so-called spiller in containers, the plant that's going to drape over the edge. Now let's take a look at some taller perennials for sun, 1 foot or taller. And again, I'll be introducing these in the sequence in which they would bloom in your garden. The first is Robin's plantain, Erigeron pulchellus. This is a stoloniferous plant. That means it's going to spread by those above ground stems. It grows about 18 to 24 inches tall and wide. It will grow in sun, but it prefers light shade in a hot climate, and it prefers lean, limey soils. It has soft, hairy basal leaves, and these will provide nourishment for several moth species. These showy flowers will appear in April, attracting pollinators, and you may see them sometimes in this lavender variant. Fluffy seed heads appear shortly thereafter. Robin's plantain can spread to form colonies via those stolons, and it's useful in borders and rock gardens. Lynnhaven carpet is a naturally occurring variant, and it's very popular because of its somewhat larger leaves and very dense mat-forming habit. Lyre-leaf sage, Salvia lyrata, has an upright clumping habit, fairly dense. The flower stalks are about 1 to 2 feet tall, and the base is about 9 to 12 inches across. Another one for full sun, dry to moist soil, fairly tolerant of a wide variety of conditions in the garden. Lyre-leaf sage grows from a basal rosette. It's evergreen and somewhat purple tinged along the veins. Purple knockout is a popular cultivar where the entire leaf will have a maroon or purple color. These lovely lavender tubular flowers appear from April to June, providing nectar for native bees. Lyre-leaf sage has interesting seed heads, and these seeds are consumed by doves. The plant reseeds prolifically to form a fairly solid evergreen cover. It can take mowing and foot traffic. If you want to control the spread, you would just simply trim those tall seed heads, and the plant is also easily uprooted. I sometimes find it volunteering in one part of my garden. I simply uproot it and move it to a part where I would like it to grow. This would be a great substitute for invasive ajuga. Threadleaf coreopsis, Coreopsis verticillata, has a very open, airy habit and spreads slowly. It's a little taller, 30 to 36 inches tall by 2 to 3 feet wide. It can grow in sun to part shade, dry to moist soil, and tolerates drought, heat, and humidity, even salt, but not waterlogged soils. This plant will spread both by rhizomes and self-seeding. It has this lovely fine textured foliage and yellow flowers all the way from June to September, offering a nectar source for pollinators and seeds for birds. Coreopsis is excellent for use in hell strips. Here's a photo from one of our demonstration gardens. It's in the hell strip of the Sunny demonstration garden. It's also an excellent edging plant for borders. Zagreb is a popular cultivar because of its uniform habit. And moonbeam is selected by some for its pale yellow color and long period of bloom. You can see a report on threadleaf coreopsis in the Mount Cuba research report. Clustered mountain mint is one of a number of mountain mints. This is Pycnanthemum muticum. It's a clump-forming plant that will spread by rhizomes. The flower stalks are 1 to 3 feet tall and spread about the same distance. It grows in sun to part shade, tolerates drought, but it prefers moist soil. Mountain mint has aromatic leaves. It can be used for tea. You'll see these white flowers from June to September, and they are bordered by the lovely silvery bracts that add a cool sensation to the garden. And there's continuing winter interest with these textured seed heads. Mountain mint can add textural contrast in beds and hell strips, and you might want to mass it in a butterfly garden. In pollinator trials that were conducted by Penn State Extension, this particular plant was rated #1 for flower longevity, as well as the diversity and total number of pollinators. I'd like to take a moment to speak about several of the goldenrods, members of the Solidago species. These have been singled out by entomologist Doug Tallamy because he rates them as the #1 herbaceous keystone genus. This is because of the large number of species of Lepidoptera, butterflies, and moths that can be hosted by these plants. This means that the foliage of these plants is going to provide the important nourishment for the caterpillars of these species. We like to see the adults, but we want to make sure that they can continue to multiply. And so this is a good example of a genus of plants that will help in that regard. The goldenrods have various habits. The ones I'm going to be mentioning will grow 1 to 3 feet tall and wide. They grow in sun to part shade, some in dry and some in wet soil. The first is rough-stemmed goldenrod. I'm particularly singling out the fireworks cultivar of Solidago rugosa. This has plume-like zigzag panicles on stiff stems, and you can see how it appears to have that fireworks appearance. I particularly use a technique of pinching them back, beginning maybe in May and pinching them several times up until about July. That way I can control the height, and this makes a very nice, very effective ground cover surrounding for one of the shrubs in my front yard. Blue-stemmed goldenrod, Solidago is maybe my favorite of the goldenrods. It has a very graceful habit and is a nice border plant for dry woodland edges. You'll see these loose flower clusters on arching stems, and they will provide great late nectar source all the way from August into October. So important for our pollinators as well as for the butterflies and moths. You might also want to consider false goldenrod, Solidago sfacellata. Golden fleece has been singled out as particularly attractive. You'll see these wider panicles on stiff multi-branch stems. This particular goldenrod has distinctive rosettes of heart-shaped basal leaves. This will create a mat-like ground cover for rock gardens, meadows, and naturalized areas. Doug Tellamy has singled out asters as the #2 herbaceous keystone genus, supporting 112 species of Lepidoptera. My favorite is aromatic aster, Symphyiotrichum oblongifolium. The reason I like this particular one is it doesn't have that tall, leggy, gangly shape that other species such as New England aster have. This has a bushy, mounding, globe-shaped habit. It will grow only about 1 to 3 feet tall and wide. It likes sun and dry conditions. Aromatic aster, true to its name, has aromatic leaves on densely branched stems. This is a fabulous late pollen and nectar source all the way from August into even mid-November. Radon's favorite has been singled out as a popular cultivar. It was top rated by Chicago Botanic Garden after a long period of study. And October Skies is another popular cultivar. This has a more compact and dense habit. Aromatic aster slowly colonizes by stolons, those above ground stems. And you can see how it creates a really dense, low maintenance planting for slopes. You might also want to use it in rock gardens or in the front of borders, as we do at our local Glencarlin demonstration garden. This could be a great native substitute for chrysanthemums. Moving on, let's take a quick look at some grasses and rushes for sun. The first is little blue stem, Schizocarium scoparium. This is a clumping warm season grass. That means that it will get a somewhat later start in the growing season. It grows about 2 to 4 feet tall, 1.5 feet to 2 feet across. This plant is definitely going to prefer the sun and the dry conditions that it would have in its original native area in the tall grass prairie. It is really intolerant of flooding. It's going to flop if it receives too much moisture or if the soil is too rich. Little blue stem has erect stems with light blue-green leaves, and its flower heads will change through the seasons. There'll be lovely silvery white seed heads. Then the leaves themselves will change to a bronze color in the fall, and that will last through the winter. Little blue stem is an important larval host for skippers. It provides protective cover for small animals as well as seeds for birds. Little blue stem has many landscape uses. You can mass it in an ornamental planting. Its deep root system can help control erosion on slopes, and it can serve as the structural layer in meadows. Common or soft rush, Juncus effusus, is an upright plant that spreads by rhizomes. It's about 2 to 4 feet tall and wide, another plant that likes full sun, but this one, by contrast to the little blue stem, prefers wet, consistently moist soil, and it can even grow in standing water up to 4 inches deep. This is an evergreen plant. It has smooth, leafless, spire-like stems and these golden brown flowers from July to September. This could serve as an important central component of a rain garden and control erosion on moist banks. River oats, Chesmanthium latifolium, is an upright clumping cool season grass. It can range from 2 to 5 feet tall and spreads about 2 to 3 feet across. It can grow from sun all the way to part shade and dry to wet soil. An alert, this plant spreads fairly aggressively. It does serve as the larval host for a skipper. River oats is interesting in that it has attractive seed heads through the seasons. In July, it will be particularly attractive backlit by the light. In August, you'll see it maturing to pink and then tan. And in September, the seed heads will continue to provide winter interest. Because of its aggressive spread, it can serve very effectively for erosion control on slopes. You can mass it in borders and rain gardens and use it in hell strips. Now let's take a look at some woody plants for sun. Creeping juniper, Juniperus horizontalis, has a sprawling mat-forming habit. This is a shrub. It grows only about 6 to 18 inches tall, but it spreads very wide, 5 to 8 feet across. This will grow in full sun and moist soil, although it's tolerant of drought and poor rocky soil and pollution. This is an evergreen plant. Just an alert, the members of the Juniperus genus will serve as alternate hosts for rust disease. So if you have a plant in the apple, pear, quince family, the rose family, something in that family, a shrub or a tree like serviceberry, you need to be alert that this could cause a growth to form on the fruit. It's not going to kill those plants, but it would be somewhat unsightly. Creeping juniper has green to blue-green foliage. It turns purplish in winter, and it forms a dense, wide mat, great for foundations, rock gardens, hell strips, or erosion control on slopes. Some of us are familiar with fragrant sumac, Rhus aromatica, the straight species that grows about 6 feet tall. Here, for ground cover purposes, I'm introducing the Grow Low cultivar. This has a very dense habit. It's low growing, only about 1.5 to 3 feet tall, but it can spread quite wide, 6 to 8 feet across. It can grow in sun to part shade, dry to moist soil, and as is consistent with some of these other ground covers I've been introducing, tolerates drought and shallow rocky soil. You'll see this glossy aromatic foliage. Note that although it's in the same genus as a poison ivy, this is non-toxic foliage. Male catkins appear on the plant from summer through winter, and then you'll see these female flowers in April attracting pollinators. When they are pollinated, they'll result in this fuzzy fruit that is attractive for the birds. Fragrant sumac has a brilliant fall color. This particular plant works very well as a foundation plant. One of my master gardener colleagues uses it as a green mulch under her trees and shrubs. This plant can spread, as I've mentioned, by suckering to form a very attractive low hedge. The plant is also excellent for bank stabilization. This is a church parking lot where I recommended that it be planted, and you can see how it has spread. The first photo was taken when it was first put in, and this is what it looks like just about a month ago. So it can really handle those hell strip conditions. Another lovely shrub that you might use as a ground cover is shrubby St. John's wort, Hypericum prolificum. It's compact and mound-shaped, grows about 1 to 4 feet tall and wide. This grows in sun to part shade and likes moist soil, although it will tolerate a variety of conditions, all the way from drought to brief flooding. This plant has fine textured foliage and serves as a larval host for Lepidoptera. The flowers do not produce nectar, but they're very showy. You'll see them from June to August, and they offer abundant pollen for bees and flies. Later, you'll see cone-shaped capsules, and they're attractive when they dry to brown, lasting through into the wintertime. Shrubby St. John's wort is a densely branched plant, and it's useful when grouped on a slope for erosion control. And you might enjoy massing it in a wildlife garden. Gray owl red cedar is a cultivar of the familiar tall red cedar tree. This is a vase-shaped shrub with a spreading habit. It grows about 2 to 3 feet tall and spreads across 5 to 6 feet. It likes full sun and moist soil, although it tolerates a range of conditions. It's evergreen, and as with the other creeping juniper, this is an alternate host for that rust disease I mentioned. Gray owl is a dioecious species. That means that there are separate male and female plants. You'll see these flowers on the female plants in May, and then berry-like cones through the winter will be eaten by birds. Gray owl is noted for its silvery gray scale-like foliage, and this particular genus is best known for its drought resistance, more tolerant than any other conifer that's native to the eastern US. Gray owl has attractive arching branches, very effective when massed, and it's useful for dry, sunny sites. We'll take a look at that handful of ground covers that can grow in a range of sun exposures all the way from sun to shade. The first are the violets, and there are a number of them that are locally native. They have a mounding habit. They're generally about 6 to 9 inches tall and spread about a foot across. They can bloom as early as March. Here are the species that are locally native: common blue, the Confederate variant, yellow violets, and striped. And all of these are good sources of spring nectar for our pollinators. Additionally, violets can serve as larval hosts to 30 species of fritillaries, that particular subcategory of butterflies. They can spread to form a natural woodland ground cover, and I personally allow them to volunteer in my yard, and I use them as a green mulch under woody plants. If they pop up in an area where I don't want them to grow, I simply uproot them and then move them to create this nice, dense ground cover. Golden ragwort, Pachyra aurea, is highly recommended by our local Audubon at Home ambassadors, and you'll see why as I discuss it. This is a clump-forming plant. The basal leaves are only 6 inches high, but it will be 30 inches tall with the bloom. The individual plants are about 6 to 18 inches across. This can grow all the way from sun to shade and moist to wet soil, and it's evergreen. Golden ragwort has glossy basal leaves. They provide nourishment for 18 species of Lepidoptera. You'll see these purple buds in the spring, and surprisingly, they will open up into these bright yellow daisy-like flower clusters. They bloom for about 3 weeks in April. They're very attractive to bees and butterflies. Now, golden ragwort can spread both by self-seeding and basal offshoots. That can allow it to be a really excellent ground cover, spreading across a wide area. But if you want to control the spread, you would simply trim those seed stalks in late April before they've had a chance to really blow in the wind. Golden ragwort has numerous landscape uses. Here it is used as an edging for a pathway, front of a border. It makes a great impact when used en masse. You can allow it to naturalize in woodland areas. It can serve as a green mulch under shrubs, and it's an excellent plant for erosion control on slopes. It's really the ideal substitute for invasive English ivy. Another great plant for sun to shade conditions is golden Alexander's, Zizia aurea. This has an erect branching habit. It reaches from 18 to 36 inches tall, 18 to 24 inches wide. It tends to like moist soil. Golden Alexander's has compound leaves with toothed leaflets. It's the host plant for swallowtail butterflies. You'll see these flat-topped flower clusters in April. They are easily accessible for a variety of pollinators for pollen and nectar. Seed heads will form in summer and are very attractive even when they dry. Golden Alexanders can be used as a green mulch under shrubs and trees. As I've said, it self-seeds fairly easily, so it creates a really nice edging in a layered garden. This is along a woodland path in my backyard. Great substitute for invasive bishop's weed. Another plant that grows well in a range of sun conditions is alum root, Heuchera villosa, and I'm particularly singling out the autumn bride cultivar because of how showy its flowers are and the fact that its foliage is evergreen. It has a rounded clumping form. It grows about 18 to 36 inches tall and 18 to 24 inches across. This one you'll want to keep moist in order to avoid decline. As I mentioned, it has large leaves. These are lobed and toothed, and they will remain even through snow and ice in the winter. You'll see airy panicles, very large, from June to October, attracting bees and butterflies. And then even as they dry out, they form these striking seed heads that will last all the way through the winter. Autumn bride can be used en masse in a woodland to control erosion. Here's how we use it as a foundation planting in our Glen Carlin demonstration garden. And one of my master gardener colleagues uses it as a base under shrubs and an edging for walkways. Colleen, do we have any questions at this halfway point?
We just have one, Elaine. You mentioned that river oats, coreopsis, and mountain mint are all deer resistant. Are there ground covers you could recommend that are both deer and rabbit resistant?
If folks follow the links from the handout to our tried and true fact sheets, we usually try to mention when plants are not only deer resistant, but rabbit resistant. Now we'll move on to perennials for shade. Again, we're beginning with the low-growing plants, and they'll be introduced in bloom sequence. The first is Allegheny spurge, Pachysandra procumbens. This is a clumping plant, about 6 to 10 inches tall, and it will spread about 1 to 2 feet across. This can grow all the way from part shade to full shade. In fact, it tolerates not only dense shade, but drought. This is an evergreen ground cover. You'll see these fragrant blossoms very early in the year. They will appear in March. And you'll see these very interesting seasonal changes in the foliage. New leaves will emerge with this bright spring green color. Then they will take on a marbled pattern as they appear with the flowers. And then they develop this solid green coloration. Allegheny spurge will spread slowly to form colonies, so you can use it en masse in woodland gardens. And it also is excellent for use under trees and near foundations. A perfect substitute for the invasive Japanese Pachysandra. Dwarf-crested iris, Iris cristata, is a low mound-forming plant, 6 to 8 inches tall. It spreads about a foot across. This likes moist soil generally, but it will tolerate drought and dense shade. Dwarf-crested iris, true to its name, has the typical sword-like leaves. You'll see these charming lavender flowers in April, which attract bees and hummingbirds, and it will spread slowly by rhizomes to form fairly dense colonies. Dwarf-crested iris can be used in borders and is very attractive in woodland gardens. Here you see it intermixed with ferns and another lovely ground cover that I'll be talking about shortly, white wood aster. Wild ginger, Asarum canadense, is a lush but deciduous ground cover. It ranges from 6 inches to a foot tall and spreads across about a foot to a foot and a half. This will grow in part to full shade, and it definitely will like moist soil. I've had to add supplemental water for this during periods of drought. Wild ginger has satiny heart-shaped leaves and serves as a larval host for the pipe vine swallowtail. You'll see these charming burgundy-colored flowers in April to May that are tucked beneath the foliage. Wild ginger will spread slowly by rhizomes, and you can mass it on slopes to control erosion. It's very attractive in a woodland garden, and you can use it a little more formally as an edging. Barren strawberry, Geum fragarioides, is a creeping mat-forming plant. It's 4 to 6 inches tall and spreads about a foot across. This tends to like moist, humus-rich, acidic soil, and I've noted that it's particularly effective when grown under conifers. It is evergreen. You'll see these charming yellow flowers from April to May. It does produce a fruit, but unlike the other native strawberry, this is inedible. It forms a dense mat that can choke out weeds, making it ideal for edging or rock gardens. Creeping phlox, Phlox stolonifera, has a spreading mat-forming habit. It's 6 to 8 inches tall with the flowers and about a foot and a half across. It grows in part to full shade, moist soil, but it will tolerate some degree of drought. It begins growth with these basal leaves, and then the leafy stems will creep along to form colonies. These lovely flowers appear from April to May, providing early nectar for our pollinators, and they're available in a variety of colors. Creeping phlox can be used in a woodland garden. It makes a lovely edging along a forest path, or you can combine it with other plants. Here, for example, are some sedges in a shady bed. Wild stonecrop, Sedum ternatum, is a prostrate mat-forming plant, only about 2 to 6 inches tall, and the individual plants will spread about 9 inches across. This grows in part to full shade, moist soil, but it will tolerate a certain amount of drought as well as rocky soil, and it is semi-evergreen. It's interesting in that it has succulent leaves that are arranged in whorls. It has beautiful star-like flowers from April to May that attract bees, wasps, and flies. It's a perfect selection for rock gardens, and you can use it, as I have, under trees and shrubs. Green and gold, Chrysogonum virginianum, is a mat-forming clumping plant. It's about 6 to 8 inches tall and spreads about a foot to a foot and a half across. I originally listed this as one of the plants that could grow in a range of soil conditions. And in a conversation that Colleen and I had, she says that it does very well for her in sun. I've listed it here because for me, I found that it languished somewhat in full sun. So you can make the determination for yourself whether it would do well in full sun. I'm listing it here as a good plant for part to full shade. If you use it in sun, you would definitely want to provide it supplemental moisture. Green and gold has semi-evergreen foliage. these lovely yellow flowers. They're composite flowers from April to May, and then it can even bloom intermittently on into the fall, providing nectar for pollinators. Pierre is a fairly popular cultivar, and it has been singled out because of its longer period of bloom and the fact that it is more consistently evergreen. Green and gold, as I've mentioned, spreads steadily by rhizomes, creating a weed-free mat. And I've used it as edging in a formal part of my garden. Bone flower, Tiarella cordifolia, another clump-forming plant, although it does have a creeping habit. It's about 6 to 12 inches tall with the flower stalks, spreads about 1 to 2 feet across. This grows in part to full shade. It likes moist soil, neither too wet nor too dry. I have provided supplemental water during dry periods, and it will even be evergreen in mild winters. Foam flower has heart-shaped lobed leaves and spreads by stolons. Running tapestry is a popular cultivar with this interesting speckled foliage, kind of a maroon color along the veins. This has even more of a running habit, and I've used it very effectively as a spiller in a combination planter with several native plants. It will spill over the edge. You'll see these beautiful airy flowers, giving it the name foam flower, from April to May, and these attract small bees, flies, as well as butterflies. You can use foam flower in a woodland garden. It's very attractive in rock gardens, and you could use it on slopes for erosion control. Partridgeberry, Michella repens, has a creeping prostrate habit. It's only about 2 to 4 inches tall and spreads about a foot across. It grows in part to full shade, even tolerating dense shade, and it is another lovely evergreen selection. You'll see these dark buds in April, and they will open into these charming white fuzzy flowers from May to July, attracting bumblebees in particular. There are paired flowers. You'll see how they are joined at the base, and they will form a single red dimpled fruit. The fruit is referred to as a drupe. It's fleshy. It will be on the plant from July to December and eaten by birds. Partridgeberry has glossy, rounded leaves. It slowly forms a dense mat, particularly useful in woodland gardens. Our local naturalist recommends that you plant partridgeberry away from any competing plants in the shade and without any deep leaf cover. Moving on to some taller perennials for shade. These are going to be a foot and taller, again in bloom sequence. Jacob's ladder, Polemonium reptans, is a mound-forming plant with kind of a sprawling habit, about 12 to 18 inches tall and wide. This is going to grow in part to full shade. It prefers moist soil, and it's going to go dormant during drought if not kept evenly moist. Jacob's ladder is noted for its delicate fern-like foliage with the leaves in pairs, looking like a ladder. These beautiful bluish purple flowers appear from April to May, attracting many pollinators, and it can spread through reseeding. Jacob's ladder makes a nice edging. It can serve as a ground layer in a woodland garden, and it provides an interesting contrasting texture in shady beds. May apple, Podophyllum peltatum, is a spreading plant. It's about 12 to 18 inches tall. Individual plants are 9 to 12 inches across. This will grow in part to full shade. It likes moist soil, although it is somewhat drought tolerant. But note that eventually in the mid-summer, it will die back completely. It is an ephemeral plant. May apple begins its growth with umbrella-like leaves that unfurl in the spring. You'll see flowers On two-leaved plants from April to May, the flower will appear in the axil there, and it's very attractive to long-tongued bees. When pollinated, it will form this fleshy fruit, somewhat lemon-shaped, and that fruit is very attractive to box turtles. May apple can spread to form dense colonies, making it perfect for naturalizing. But because it is ephemeral, when you use it in your deciduous woodland, you'd want to interplant it with other species to compensate for that summer dormancy. Here you see it with ferns, the Allegheny spurge, that lovely evergreen ground cover that I mentioned. And here it's combined with the non-native Solomon seal. White wood aster, Eurybia divaricata, is a loose clumping plant, about 12 to 30 inches tall. It will spread about 30 inches across. This does well in my dry shade. It tolerates drought, shallow soil, and even heavy shade. It has lovely heart-shaped basal leaves. The flowers will appear from July to October, providing important late-season nectar. Seed heads develop in October, and they will offer seed for birds. White wood aster spreads vigorously, so you can use it to control erosion. I use it in my shady native plant garden in my backyard, and it's also lovely as an edging for woodland paths. Let's take a look at some ferns for shade. The first is Christmas fern, Polysticum acrosticoides. This grows in circular cascading clumps. It measures about a foot tall, spreads about 1 to 2 feet across. It will grow in part to full shade and dry to moist soil. I find that it does well in my dense shade and will tolerate drought fairly well. And importantly, for its use as a ground cover, it is evergreen. You'll see these silvery scaled fiddleheads appearing in the spring to refresh the foliage. It has leathery fronds with stocking-shaped pinnae, leading to its name, Christmas fern. Unlike the other plants we've been discussing, will not spread by seeds, it spreads by spores, and these appear on the top part of the undersides of the fronds. You can use Christmas fern along shaded foundations or in woodland gardens, or you could use it en masse to control erosion on banks. Another wonderful fern is marginal wood fern, Dryopteris marginalis. This grows in vase-shaped clumps, about 1.5 to 2 feet across and the same distance wide. It grows in part to full shade and will tolerate drought once established. Like Christmas fern, it is evergreen. You'll see these fiddleheads refreshing the foliage in the spring. And it develops these deeply cut leathery fronds. On this particular fern, you'll see the sori in these characteristic linear patterns on the underside. This provides wonderful cover for toads and lizards. You can use marginal wood fern to carpet a ground layer of a woodland garden, or you could combine it with other shade-loving plants in garden beds. Here you see it with May apple, Podophyllum peltatum, the large leaf that appears at the front, and it's also intermixed with Allegheny spurge, Pachysandra procumbens. Ostrich fern, Matutia strathiopteris, grows in upright arching clumps. This is by far one of the largest of our native ferns. It grows up to 6 feet tall and wide, in part to full shade, and it's definitely going to prefer moist to wet soil. You'll see these tightly curled fiddleheads in March. And I wanted to point out that this, at the current time, is considered to be the only type of fern fiddleheads that are edible. In the past, several other species were considered edible, but now it's thought that maybe they contain carcinogenic compounds. You'll see what are referred to as the sterile fronds unfurling shortly after the fiddleheads appear. And these very large ferns will provide great cover for wildlife. Then in the summer, completely separate fertile fronds, deep green, will emerge. And those will remain on the fern until March. And it's at that point that they will release their spores for multiplication. Ostrich fern is beautiful when massed with bulbs in the spring. Here it is, absolutely gorgeous, backlit in the spring sunshine. You can use it beneath shrubs, and here you see it carpeting the ground in a moist woodland. This was at Winterthur. I can now describe some grasses and sedges for shade. The first is Pennsylvania sedge, Carex pennsylvanica. This is a plant with a fountaining habit. It grows about 6 to 12 inches tall and wide. It grows in part to full shade, dry to moist soil, and tolerates heavy shade. It does fairly well in my dry shade. You'll see these very interesting inflorescences. That's the technical term for the flowers of sedges in April, and it will spread via rhizomes. Pennsylvania sedge can be used as a woodland ground cover or a grass-like ground cover in shady areas where our normal turf species won't grow. What I would recommend is to use stepping stones for any foot traffic through those areas, because Pennsylvania sedge does not take foot traffic. Another native sedge is Appalachian sedge, Carex appalachica. This, rather than spreading so much by rhizomes, has a bunching habit. It grows about 6 inches tall, but considerably wider, about a foot to 18 inches across. It can grow in dry to moist soil and is fairly drought tolerant. Like Pennsylvania sedge, it has fairly fine textured foliage, and it serves as a larval host to skippers and satyrs. As I mentioned, it has dense mounded tufts rather than that rhizomatous spread. You'll see these inflorescences from April to May, and the resulting seed will provide food for birds and turtles. Appalachian sedge is ideal for edging under paths. Here I've used it under my native hydrangea, wild hydrangea. Very effective for soil stabilization. This is on a steep hillside at Longwood Gardens. And here you can see how it's used for erosion control, even on really steep slopes. This is in our quarry shade demonstration garden. Plantain leaf sedge, Carex plantagenea, is perhaps one of the most ornamental of the native sedges. It grows about 6 to 12 inches tall, 1 to 2 feet across, and grows in part to full shade. It likes moist soil, but I have found that it does tolerate dry shade once established, and it's evergreen, even continuing on through cold temperatures, snow, and ice. As I've mentioned, it's quite ornamental. It has strap-like leaves about an inch across, much wider than the two sedges I've mentioned prior to this. They have puckered veins, leading to the alternate name seersucker sedge, and it will serve as a larval host plant. These are the charming inflorescences in March, and they appear on multicolored stems. The birds will eat resulting seed, and I've been noticing that this plant develops nice offsets from short rhizomes. You can separate them from the main plant and then replant them to facilitate the spread for their use as a ground cover. This particular sedge, when grouped, can make a really striking accent in your garden. Here you see it used for erosion control on slopes, and this picture was taken in the dead of winter. Also excellent for edging, and to my mind, plantain leaf sedge is the ideal replacement for invasive liriope. Moving on to a somewhat taller plant, this is bottlebrush grass, Elamis hystrix. This is a clump-forming cool season plant, so it will begin its growth a little bit later in the growing season. It will ultimately grow about 2 to 4 feet tall and 2 feet wide. Interestingly, among the grass species, this one tolerates heavy shade and drought. It has strap-like leaves looking somewhat like those of bamboo. It is serving as a larval host and has these very distinctive inflorescences, maybe about 6 inches long. The birds eat the grain-like seed that they produce. Bottlebrush grass is really effective when massed in colonies to use as a ground cover at woodland edges. It spreads by self-seeding, and you'll see these interesting color changes of the seed heads through the growing season. Let's take a look at a woody plant for shade. This is the vine Virginia creeper, Parthenocissus quinquefolia. It's a deciduous vine, and it can spread over quite a distance, 30 to 50 feet, 5 to 10 feet wide. It can grow in a range of sun exposures from sun to part shade. It likes moist soil, will tolerate a certain amount of drought and heavy shade. A reminder that Virginia creeper has palmate leaves, like the fingers of a hand. There are 5 leaves, unlike poison ivy, which has 3. It has very subtle flowers in June, but those result in this abundant fruit in the fall. And Virginia creeper has brilliant late fall foliage. You can use Virginia creeper to cover stumps. You can use it decoratively on walls, but it's very important not to let it grow on buildings because it could damage woodwork. It does serve, however, for excellent erosion control on slopes, making it a perfect substitute for invasive winter creeper. Here are some notes on our resources for recommended native plants. As I've mentioned, if you follow the links from the handout, you'll be taken to our website. And under the plants menu, you will see a selection of plants, and you can pick one of them and then be taken directly to the tried and true fact sheets. These give you all of the basic characteristics of the plant that I've been describing. Also, discussion of any tolerances to drought, to salt, to black walnut, whether they're resistant to rabbits or deer. And then there'll be lots of tips for growing and maintenance. You may also want to take a look at our invasive plant fact sheets. You can do that by following the links at the top of the handout. And if you're looking for substitutes, you can see how you can be taken to a tried and true fact sheet to see a great replacement plant. If you are local in the Northern Virginia area, I highly recommend that you come to visit our Master Gardener demonstration gardens, and you can get information about those and see the locations on our website, mgnv.org. For those of you who are interested in buying native plants here in the Northern Virginia area, the best resource for that information is at the Plant Nova Natives website. Not only do they have a list of year-round native-only sellers, but in the spring and the fall, they will list seasonal native plant sales. If you are attending this presentation from other areas, other states, I highly recommend that you check either with your local extension agent, or you can go to websites for your state native plant society. I'll be happy to take any final questions here, Colleen.
Okay, just a quick one. Is there something you'd recommend that's both shade tolerant and foot traffic tolerant?
It seems like most of the ones I've been recommending for shade are not going to be as tolerant as some of the ones that I mentioned for sun. They're a little more delicate. My best suggestion would be to allow a growth of a plant. If you wanted a turf replacement, a low plant like the Pennsylvania sedge, or you could even have a mass of the Allegheny spurge, stonecrop. Really, any of those ground covers could be absolutely beautiful, and you could just use stepping stones to move through that area.
Thank you for another absolutely wonderful presentation. Your pictures are gorgeous. Your information is so helpful, and we all really benefit from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I hope I've introduced you to some new plants that you might consider really broadening your idea of the kinds of plants that can be used for ground covers. And as Colleen mentioned, I will be looking over the chat and responding to absolutely every question that has been posed. Happy gardening, everyone.